war, I find
This is what I call
myself
stupid.
being stricken
You
with
can't get
PTSD.
PTSD from just
And
thinking about
I
war and all that
find
sort of
peace
crap.
knowing that
Yo,
I serve with great
you can
advocates
only get
for
that through a
peace
dangerous
and
situation.
people who have shown
Now,
courage
if you've been
against
abused
war.
as a child, you've been abused as early adulthood, etc. You can't get this, through what she's trying to say. Um, Ilhan Omar, she is just a radicalized Islamic terrorist, in our Congress. I don't even know why we support this woman. She's one of the supporters of organization called CARN, which deals with, Islamic. It's an Islamic organization, but they deal on terrorism. Um, she's been at this for a long, long time, maybe a few years now. But on the subject of Iran has been doing this terrorism since the 1950s, when the Shah was killed, that the United States went and installed for its oil, but we were friends with the Shah. That's how it all began. They kidnapped I think it was 68 or 100 American students. They held, or not students, but people, at an embassy. And they held them for 480 days. They were released back into U.S. custody after the 480 days of captivity. And what had happened was, they were so darn, brainwashed and everything from, the Iranians in the government, keeping them, a Khomeini, telling them, okay, we're wrong in doing what we're doing. No, Mr. Khomeini, you're wrong in doing what you're doing. You've been stirring up the pot since, long before this, with all the miscommunication that people are trying to believe that, Iran, some people are split right down the middle of it, saying that Iran's in the right. No, they're not. I mean, they've been tantalizing the United States for a long time. Even when Barack Obama was in office, they took, I think it was 25 sailors, and they held them captive. Barack Obama didn't do nothing for those people. He didn't do a damn thing. All he did was get his chain jerked around. They held him for ransom. It's almost like, okay, these people are terrorists. They flat out give a shit. And on another occasion, they went and decided they were going to ultimately extort us for missile technology, nuclear missile. Iran has now the capability of building their very first missile, the very first ICBM they can build now because of what Barack Obama did. Now then, recently Trump had cut, funding for them. And this is what they're so pissed off about. That the U.S., cut their missile funding so that they can't go get a missile and launch it at us or our U.S. allies or, hurt us. Fast forward a little bit, to right now in our time. And one of their generals, can't remember his name, but they were having a fit about that. And it's like, okay, you're having a complete fit about this, but yet what about what was going on? He was plotting to attack U.S. diplomats. He was plotting to attack the United States Embassy. They even decided that they were going to go so far as to have protesters go to Baghdad, Iraq, which is now a sovereign U.S. ally, besides a puppet. They went and protested there. They caused all kinds of havoc that went wrong. And next thing we know, they tried to siege a United States embassy about like what had happened in the early 2000s when Barack Obama was still in office and Hillary Clinton, as our Secretary of, Defense. It was her duty to make sure that Ambassador Chris Stevenson, was safe, and all the paperwork there was there, proving that the embassy was not safe. There were flaws in its defense grid, and they needed to patch it up. They needed to send U.S. troops to the embassy. Hillary denied it. Obama denied it. And now you fast forward to today, which is 2020, earlier in the year, they try another assault on another U.S. embassy, but this time it's in Baghdad, Iraq. U.S. troops are called in to quell the resistance, and the protesters, the Iranian protesters, are forced away. Some of them even possibly killed. You fast forward a couple more days, and next thing you know, they're launching attacks on U.S. bases. That's another cause for U.S. tensions to be in the worst it's ever been. I don't really care about, politics or anything like that, but when it concerns my nation that's going to war, I have every right to speak up. I don't need to be told to shut up from people, because I know what I'm talking about, I mean, this is no different than what it was during the Gulf War, and this is no different than, Operation Iraqi Freedom, when we went over, forcing, terrorism out the back door. I think, Baghdad, Iraq, and the Iraqis, they're better for the freedom that they got. They're possibly living a lot better than what they were, which was no power, and, their leader, Saddam, he was ultimately starving his own people. He had about 10 to 20 golden palaces where he could be using that gold.
Thank you, Ro.
To ultimately do his job.
I feel
to feed his own people, to get their infrastructure back up. All this. He had failed. And to have a woman like this, Ilhan Omar, whatever her name is, saying that she's got post-traumatic stress disorder. You go through what our guys did over there, you'll have that mental disease. It sticks with you your entire life. You feel ill. You feel ill. You feel like there's no hope. You have flashbacks. You're constantly looking over your shoulder. I have PTSD, but I've had it since I was a kid. I know how it is. You feel ill. You feel like there's no hope. You feel like, the world's crashing down around you. You're crying a lot, in your own time. You're not even showing it half the time. You don't want to talk about the problem that, has happened. It's not easy to talk about. But this woman, claiming she's got PTSD, I call bullshit. There's no way. She wasn't abused as a child like I was. She hasn't seen war like my buddy um, Tyler Schaefer has. I mean, he had to have 2 knee replacements because he, goofed his knees up, when he was over in the war zone. I mean, it's not pretty. When you go to war with somebody, there's going to be casualties. But to have people say that, you've got PTSD, before you go saying such things, you need to have it first diagnosed. You can't say you have it until, you actually been diagnosed with it. I was first diagnosed with mine when I was 30 years old. Now, there are times where I have flare-ups and, I, pop off on somebody. And there are times where I can't control it. But there's help out there. You can get help, and only if you reach out. But this woman does not have PTSD. And, Uncle Sam's misguided children, he tells it like it is. This guy from Cuba. I like him. I respect him. He tells it like it is. He doesn't lie or anything. In fact, he's more American than anybody, me or anybody. He loves his country. He comes in from war.